Today's show is how to make superb nutrition super easy. And we are going to go into learning some really cool things with Dr. Anthony Balduzzi and I. I think it's going to be a really special show for you because you have two experts here who have a tremendous background in the topic that we're discussing today. And it's really how to not only your nutrition, which is so very important, right? And you've heard many people say, like, nutrition is 80% of fitness, which is not true, by the way. But I would actually say exercise is first. But if you don't get the nutrition point right, your exercise is not going to matter as much, right? You won't recover as well, or you can create other biological health effects from not having the right nutrition. You also might, depending on your genes, regardless of how much you exercise, you might still hold excess body fat. So yes, nutrition is crucially important, but what is true is 99% of nutrition is actually psychological. So I'm sure that Dr. Anthony Balduzzi would agree with me exactly that really nutrition, 99% is mental. So what Dr. Anthony Balduzzi is going to do today is share with you strategies that are highly effective, not only to get that amazing nutrition, which is so very important, because even with that physical exercise stimulus, it doesn't matter as much unless you have optimal nutrition, right? So that's our goal. And not only to give you the plan, but really the plan of action to fit your life. And Anthony has a 5-step system to make nutrition simple and sustainable. We're going to go into a structure. So how to schedule the right meal timing, that type of thing. We're going to go into healthy foods, right? What should be your go-to healthy foods? What are the best food choices for you? And then how to turn those go-to foods into meals. And then how to create simple go-to rituals, like create habits with nutrition that makes it so very easy to follow a healthy nutrition plan so that you can get the right nutrition into your life to support your exercise, to support your energy, to support sleeping better and everything else. Nutrition is crazily important. But we have to be able to manage how we fit that in our life. And lastly, our 5th step of the 5-step system is paving a path with meal preparation, how to actually prepare so that all that other stuff becomes a lot easier. And to get started, let me give you an introduction to my very special guest here. Dr. Anthony Balduzzi is a health and weight loss expert and the founder of what is called the Fit Father Project and Fit Mother Project, which he has a really interesting story. I'm going to ask him to share here in a minute of how he came into developing this Fit Father Project. And he is the leading health and weight loss. Sorry, I have my digital team.
You're lagging.
Creating some connections for me here as we're getting a little bit of lagging here. And okay, back into Anthony's introduction. So he's a leading health and weight loss program. The Fit Father and Fit Mother are the leading health and weight loss programs for busy men and women over the age of 40. And Dr. Balduzzi holds dual degrees in nutrition and neuroscience from the University of Pennsylvania. He's also a doctor in naturopathic medicine and is the former national champion bodybuilder. So that is quite credentials to be able to lend today's message to you. I'm really excited to share this with you. And Dr. Balduzzi is most proud of the fact that he has helped over 60,000 families in over 100 countries lose weight and get healthy through his Fit Father and Fit Mother programs. Dr. Anthony, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited and grateful that there are over 60 people gathered here on a beautiful Saturday morning, afternoon, and we get to spend some time talking about a topic that is so dear to me, and I know to many of us in this room. How do we fuel our bodies? How do we be consistent with nutrition? And how do we feel great into old age? When Robbie and Patricia asked me to come on, I was thinking about what I wanted to present. And I decided to present on something that I believe has had the biggest impact on the many people that our companies have been able to touch. And that is presenting a system and a framework for thinking about nutrition that makes things way more simple and sustainable. Because right now, when we look at the landscape of nutrition, especially online, It is very confusing. It is very complicated. It is very dogmatic. There are people who believe vastly different things. You know, there are people who believe we should be exclusively eating meat. In the carnivore camp, there are people who believe we should be on an exclusively plant-based diet. And then there's all of these different factions in the middle. And when I see this, what I realized is there are through lines that we can pull through this derision and division that are more like principles that can be applied to our lives personally. And when we start to apply these principles, we can be consistent and kind of come up with our own unique nutrition system. And that might be different for you than it is for me, but there's actually a process to go through. There's certain steps. And all people that I've ever seen that have really good, consistent nutrition do these 5 steps unconsciously. What we're going to do today is effectively make them a little more conscious. And if you're someone who does feel like their nutrition is dialed in, I think you'll find value in this just by going through the thought experiment and seeing where your own habits slot into this framework. If you have someone in your family that is struggling with their nutrition, this is the process to help run them through, to help them get some clarity and some structure. And I'll say this, like this system that I'm going to be talking about today, I want to be able to click through, make sure I can move my title slide. And I think, Patricia, it might be because I'm an admin. Okay, if I can click through, that's good. So these are some of our program members. Like Robbie mentioned, my intro, we've helped over 60,000 families in over 100 countries. So I wanted to bring this up first just to show you that this stuff is not theoretical. Like I'm not coming to you being like, I thought these up on a long nature walk, and these are 5 steps that I think are pretty good. These are 5 steps that legitimately work and have helped our clients lose hundreds of thousands of pounds all over the world. And whether or not you want to lose weight, and that's your goal, I think these things are very valuable. And Robbie wanted me to talk about, I guess, my origin story. Well, growing up, I didn't want to be a doctor. I was just like an average kid, born in Syracuse, New York, grew up in Toronto, Canada. My dad had a very busy job as like a vice president of sales of a computer leasing company. And growing up, I just watched him bust his butt to provide for our family. And in the process, he lost his health. He got a cancer diagnosis, and he died when he was just 42. I was 9 years old at the time, and it rocked me, rocked my family. And it was a really dark period after he passed. But it also ended up being a gift because from a young age, it really helped shape my mind with some core beliefs. And one of those beliefs was that health is foundational to everything we love in life. When we lose our health, we lose our ability to work and provide, to pursue our passions, to spend time with our families, and just to have the lasting power to be around, to make memories and maximize our life. So I got serious about health and fitness from a very young age. And my mom gave me a pair of my dad's old dumbbells. And I started training when I was 10, 11 years old. And I got stronger and I got more confident. And that kind of snowballed into becoming a personal trainer in high school. I started to compete in bodybuilding in college. And I really got deep into the fitness aspect of this. To make a long story short, that kind of transformed into my pursuit of naturopathic medicine, a type of medicine that's very focused on lifestyle factors like nutrition, sleep, exercise, mindset, and really activating the body's own internal healing mechanisms through the right inputs. And I saw so many people in medical school that were a lot like my dad, kind of like stuck in the busyness of having to balance work and kids and their family lives, and they didn't have consistent habits. So I developed the Fit Father Project, and it was a slow iterative process of first starting out with a nutrition plan and some of the principles we're going to talk about, tacking in exercise, building a community. And it's been a beautiful ride. And now I'm here able to speak to you and share some of the things that I've learned in the process. So this is like my first progress picture. I was 11 years old with my brother, and I've been doing this for a long time and just flexing. And it's fun to look back on how far this journey has been for me. I want to start off with a fundamental premise, and that's this, is our bodies require nutrients and calories from food to survive and thrive. So this makes your nutrition one of the biggest decisions of your entire life. You're going to be waking up, unless you're intentionally fasting during that day, you're going to be making food decisions. And I think there's a lot of things in life that you can optimize. One of the best ones is your system for getting good nutrition into your body. And I think the nutrition system is the vehicle in which you can get quality food into your body consistently. And I like to use this word system because I believe this is a system. It's something that you can develop for you. And like any good vehicle, your nutrition system needs to be reliable. It needs to be simple to operate. It needs to be effective, and it needs to be actually enjoyable. So those are our targets today, to look at the process of developing that system. Now, the first step, I believe, to develop a good nutrition system is to come up with structure. And that's why start to decide on your proactive meal timing schedule setup and structure. Just insofar as the body has a skeleton, on which muscles hang and move these bones. There is structure to the body and layout. The nutrition structure is huge. It is the skeleton on which you slot in foods and meals. And I think when you also make this a very intentional and proactive decision, this is when I eat, it allows you to be proactive. And it also gives you anchors every single day to glide back onto good behaviors. And now the question of when will you eat is in my opinion, not one that has one definitive answer. There are many different kinds of meal timing schedule setups that you could use. There are the traditional meal timing schedule setup that many of us were brought up on. Early morning breakfast, 6, 7, 8 a.m., lunch around noon, 3 p.m. snack, dinner sometime around 6, 7. That totally works. It is a great setup if you enjoy breakfast. It is a great setup for basically keeping your blood sugar very stable with meals every 4 hours or so. And if you have a family and you want to participate in breakfast, that's good. But we also know you don't have to necessarily have breakfast. You could be doing some kind of intermittent fasting setup where your first meal comes in at like 11 or noon. You have a small snack around 2 p.m. You have dinner at 6 p.m. Some people like an earlier intermittent fasting setup, 8 a.m. for first breakfast, for example, 1 p.m. snack, earlier dinner at 4 p.m. And finally, there are many people who only eat one meal a day. They might have one big meal at 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. To me, it doesn't matter as much which one of these you choose. Although I know Robbie has some specific thoughts on what he feels would be more optimal, maybe like having more feedings, not necessarily the one meal a day. And I'd probably agree with him. But what makes things, I think, most important is to look at this and decide what is your schedule setup? Where can you be proactive on? And this is also a moving target. I believe there's different times and seasons of our lives when our meal timing schedule setup will necessarily change based on demands of our job, whether or not we're traveling. But making this a conscious first step is absolutely huge. Now, the second step is to decide what I believe are your go-to healthy foods. These are the foods that you love that are in the category of things we consider healthy, which I'll say are primarily non-processed foods. And we will, again, want to add some awareness and intention to this and decide what our go-to foods are in the following categories: proteins, healthy carbs, healthy fats, and I'll give a special shout out to green veggies. I know they would technically fall in some kind of carbohydrate category, but I think they're good to throw out there. I'm going to throw out some of my personal favorite foods. And I also want you to know, as we go through these 5 steps and we're kind of staying big picture, at the end of this, we can do some deep dive drill down Q&A into any of these more nuanced topics about food selection, et cetera. But some of my favorite go-to foods for proteins are pasture-raised quality eggs. I believe that those are so good for the choline. And I think we've kind of come to learn that the cholesterol, dietary cholesterol and blood cholesterol myth, it's not like it's something to be concerned of. It is to get good quality eggs rich in those carotenoids. It could be a great breakfast food for you. I believe that there's a lot of good benefit of having grass-fed beef, things like this, grass-fed or some kind of beef, and even organ meats too. I could have thrown those down there. That was not necessarily something that many people are talking about as much now, but eating a lot of these very nutrient-rich animal foods that are eating the right kind of diet. So grass-fed, higher in the CLA, better fat profiles can be very good. I love wild sardines. Wild caught sardines are great. They're a small fish. You don't have to worry about the mercury concerns. They're loaded in calcium, very convenient. You can take them anywhere. And I also like wild caught salmon. These are some of my proteins, not all of them, but if I had to pick a list of some 4 to list, these are the 4 that I would list. For carbohydrates, some of my favorite go-to foods are fruit, particularly in season. I believe right now there is a really big movement that kind of like tacked on the rhythm of the low carb. Then it turned into ketogenic diets. And there's been a villainization of fruit. And I think that's a very, very big mistake. I think eating the right kinds of fruits, especially the seasonal fruits, are one of the best things you can have for your health. It is different than if you had quote unquote sugar from some kind of processed source. Yes, molecularly speaking, does the glucose or the high fructose corn syrup get chopped up and broken down into similar molecules? Yes, it does. But the devil is in the details here, in the sense that when we do eat good fruits, it's coming in a concert of fibers, a matrix of different phytochemicals, vitamins, and nutrients that has a profoundly different impact on our bodies. A good time to have fruit, if you are a person that feels like you can tolerate fruit, is actually early in the day, maybe the first thing you actually break your meal with. Fruit is very quickly digested. It has those simple sugars and free-floating amino acids. It can help stimulate bowel movements early in the day. It's a good thing to have when you have an empty stomach or before exercise. So I like seasonal fruits, and I'll also say this: if you want to go down the rabbit hole, there's some really interesting things to look about fruit combining. combining certain fruits. There's a big difference between a banana and a watermelon. They have very different water composition and they mix differently in the stomach. So what I'm a fan of, and this is a little more of an advanced nutrition topic, is doing mono fruit meals. So if you're going to have a fruit, have a type of fruit for that particular meal. So maybe you just have berries, or maybe you just have melons. And if you want to actually experiment with this yourself, I dare you to eat a bunch of bananas and dates, some very dense, sugary, like almost like harder fruits, and melons at the same time. You will have stomach upset. These things don't mix really well. So mono fruit meal, I like those. I like tuber vegetables. I eat these more when I actually am in a higher training output. If I'm doing more vigorous exercise, then having some of these complex carbohydrates in the forms of sweet potatoes and yams are great. I like them too because they're so easy to cook, right? You can put them in the oven, you can slice them up, you could put some grass-fed butter or some kind of oil and salt on there, and they're really wonderful. They taste great. I like white rice. I think a majority of the world would probably agree that rice has been a staple for many healthy people's diets. And listen, white rice does not necessarily have a lot of nutrition in it in terms of like micronutrients. But if you are training hard and you're looking for a particular calorie target, white rice can be your friend. Some people find it's easier to digest than brown rice. It doesn't have the phytic acid in the outer bran shell. And you could have it on things like on a side of some fish, or maybe even in sushi or wherever you might find it. I'm not saying go overboard with white rice. I'm not saying you even have to. I'm saying that this is a food that can be in your diet. And a lot of people enjoy the palatability of that in a dinner meal. So that's good. And then of course, carbs that come from veggies. For fats, I think fats, if you're eating animal products into your diet, like the natural fats that come in high quality products are wonderful, a good way. So the wild caught salmons and sardines are having those beautiful omega-3s that you want. I think extra virgin olive oil drizzled on greens is very great. And I like certain kinds of nuts and seeds. I think not all of them are great for us, but macadamia nuts, walnuts, and pistachios are some that I really like. And a simple thing that you can do is like make up a little nut mix, throw some spices on there. Like you can throw a little salt, pepper, cayenne, rosemary. Maybe you can drizzle some oil on there, and you can even, if you want to heat them in a pan, you can. It's a delicious way to have like snacks around, but you can also eat these nuts raw. And then for veggies, I think spring mix and baby lettuces are great. Asparagus is really great. Steamed broccoli is really great. I could add other things like bok choy, which is kind of random. I don't cook that too much, but I do enjoy this. I want to mention, just because we're kind of talking about foods a little bit right now, what's coming up in the nutrition landscape and the kind of current debate out there is a lot of these people who are pushing animal-based diets and lower vegetable diets are really taking a stand against certain kinds of vegetables because they have, whether they're saying they have lectins or they have anti-nutrients or certain things that disrupt people's digestive tract. And I think there is some wisdom in this discussion that's now being brought to the forefront, where if you ate an exclusively plant-based diet, there could be some things you're eating that would not be great for a GI tract. So for example, kale is often considered a superfood, but kale is a super hard food for our bodies to digest. It is a very dense leaf. If you want to chew on that, it's got a lot of insoluble fiber, a lot of cellulose. It's harder to break down. Some sauteed kale makes it a lot easier to break down. But my point is, I do believe there's better things in this vegetable category than others. It is absolutely easier for your body to digest something like spring mix and baby lettuce than something like a kale salad. I'm not saying you can never have kale, but these are considerations. So once you've kind of picked your go-to foods, those are some of mine. And I do recommend, if you haven't, maybe write those down. I'm sure you have a concept of what some of those things are, but when you really write those down, you have 3 to 4 selections in each of those categories. You can start to get these things and combine them into simple, easy to make meals. These are what I would call your go-to meals. And when it comes to nutrition, we really want to balance 2 things. We want to balance the force of consistency with variety. We need both. This is the psychology of nutrition. If we have too much variety without enough consistency, you're spinning your wheels. It's too hard to get traction. You fall off track. If you have too much consistency with not enough variety, the joy gets sucked out of your plan, and you just kind of want to fall off track because it's not good. So what we found from coaching clients is a lot of the most high-performing people prioritize consistency early in the day and variety for dinner. So what I'm actually going to go ahead and suggest is that you really dial in your first and second meal of the day. Maybe breakfast and lunch are kind of like dialed in, and maybe you're fasting, so it's only one meal we're talking about. But you get the concept. Is like, can we create a simple go-to meal early in the day that gives your body vitamins, minerals, proteins, micronutrients? You enjoy it, doesn't require a lot of thinking. That's a powerful anchor. So here are some different meal one options. We'll call meal one breakfast. You can make something like fruit and eggs. That could be good. You can make some kind of power protein smoothie. You can throw all sorts of good stuff in there. Hemp seeds, chia seeds, some kind of protein powder that feels good on your body. You could throw mixed berries, maybe some greens in there. And these things can taste delicious. Some people who really like to have more animal-based diets even do well with like meat and nut breakfasts or like pesto on some kind of steak. If you want to go a plant-based diet, you could do some kind of power oatmeal. But the idea is to like dial in this first meal of the day. And I would bet if you're consistent with your nutrition, you probably have a dialed in meal number one for your day. So for lunch, things that are really easy to do, right? You can always throw get a bed of some of those lettuces and salads I mentioned, and you can even just throw on a can of some wild salmon. So that's what I have in that first picture. It's like not like this stuff has to take a ton of prep. You could literally throw some bed of greens, you can throw some wild salmon, you can chop up a little veggies, some extra olive oil based dressing, and boom, you have a really, really solid meal. I'm also with our program members not against people including wheat into their diet as long as it's high quality wheat and they can actually tolerate it. So this is an Ezekiel bread sandwich I took a picture of. Ezekiel is a sprouted bread you'll often find in the frozen section. And if you can tolerate it, it can be a wonderful thing. You could throw whatever kind of protein you like. It could be a turkey sandwich with avocado as I've shown here, but it also could be a plant-based sandwich. Ezekiel bread could be a really go-to thing. Today's day and age, there are lots of ways to even buy these kinds of healthy meals out. Like this is a Chipotle bowl here where you can basically load it up with whatever base you'd want, have some protein, have some guacamole on the side, bam, you have a pretty simple meal. And of course, you can also use things like we'll talk about in dinner where you can use leftovers from dinner or build something that we're going to call a perfect plate. So I'll get to what that perfect plate concept is in a second. For snack options, I think it's also important to like figure this out, especially if you're someone who travels. Like this is a nice anchor where if you know what your go-to snacks are, this is something you can always take with you. So fruit is always a good go-to snack, especially like I think core fruits. A lot of people like them because they're easy to pack and travel. Apples and pears, easy. You can pair these things with nuts. You can use jerkies if you want. There are some protein bars that aren't bad, like to have good quality ingredients. You could use a smoothie or a meal replacement shake. But these are some things that work for a vast majority of people. And all of this is basically non-processed foods, you know, with the exception of perhaps like the protein bar or maybe the meal replacement shake. We're looking at fruits, nuts, dried meats, these kinds of things. Like this is just wonderful, easy snack stuff. And it's going to help you feel good, keep your blood sugar levels stable. For dinner, the framework we teach our clients is that we want variety, right? So it's not like this is the recipe you must follow. So we recommend a framework we call it the perfect plate. And this is the idea that if we took a blank plate of food, fill half your plate with some kind of veggie you love, and we're referring to a non-starchy veggie. So it could be any of the asparagus, it could be some kind of salad or spring mix, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, whatever your family likes, but you can mix it up too. You make some kind of veggie. These things can be steamed, they could be made in the oven, or they could be served raw if in the case of a salad. You fill another quarter of the plate with some kind of protein. You can mix it up. Here we have an example of chicken, sirloin, and some salmon. But again, you could do all sorts of different things. And then the final quarter of your plate can be filled with some healthy carbs, or you can fill it with healthy fats if for some reason you do want to go on a much lower carbohydrate diet. This perfect plate framework is great because there's so many different things you can slot in. And as long as you make a perfect plate that generally looks something like this, I'll promise you it is roughly around 500 to 700 calories max. And for many people, this ends up being like a decent target to shoot for in terms of calorie balance throughout the day. And then you can adjust the carbohydrate amounts based on how much you're training and what you want to be doing here. This is a very, very easy way to kind of look at dinners and have a framework that you can kind of rotate things through. So step 4, now that we've kind of figured out first off, to recap the steps, right? We know meal timing schedule setup. We know some of our go-to foods. Now we've kind of combined them into go-to meals, or at least we have a concept for that. Step 4 is to create some morning and evening rituals that will serve as behavioral anchors to keep you on track. Nutrition is an iterative game. You can't win nutrition. It's just like every day you're going to wake up and you're going to get a fresh day and a new opportunity to make decisions in the direction of your health. And so what I believe is important, and anything that's iterative means it's not just like knowledge, it's like the psychology and the environment around making sure you can be consistent, is to have anchors, especially early in the day, at the end of the day, that make it more automatic for you to build this habit momentum. So one of the most important anchors when it comes to nutrition in the morning is hydration. I want everyone to like up their hydration game. Unless you're drinking like I would say 20 to 32 ounces of high quality water early in the morning, you're shortchanging your energy. And I'll make an argument for morning hydration here. It's like our bodies need water. You've heard the stats. Our body's made up 70% water. There's water in all of our cells, especially as we get older. Aging is a process of kind of like dehydrating in a certain sense. The discs in our spine dehydrate, our skin dehydrates. We need to prioritize hydration. And if you drink a big bolus of water, what I'm suggesting is quite a bit, almost in one setting, it actually stretches your stomach. And you have something called a gastric colic reflex. When the stomach stretches, it actually causes the colon to have some peristaltic movement to get the poop to come out. I want you to be pooping really well for your health. And I think it's a very simple way to kind of like check in to the quality of your nutrition is what is the quality of your actual digestion and elimination. And so if you do hydrate really well, you might find that you get a nicer morning poop, as well as perhaps if you include coffee in your diet, that helps as well. But the hydration ritual in the morning is key. I would also suggest that you get high quality water. And there's many websites you can look on to see like what your local area's just general off the tap water is. Depends on where you live. It's probably not great. I know here in Arizona, there is a lot of arsenic in our water, and it's not something you ideally want to be drinking long term. So we have like a whole house filtration system. There are many different kinds you can do. You can also be drinking spring water, but get something that is giving you clean water, and ideally remineralize that water. So you can do something as simple as maybe getting a little bit of like pink Himalayan salt and like getting that in the water, or you can get more advanced and get trace mineral drops or fulvic or humic acid supplements. These are carriers for certain minerals. But like, mark my words here, mineral discussion is going to become one of the bigger topics in health over the next 5 to 10 years. We have focused a lot on calories, a lot on macros, a lot on vitamins, and now we're going to start to understand the importance of minerals. And I think you can get ahead of the curve and really start remineralizing your water with these supplements. And so that simple act of like having that water to kick you off, I believe is a little bit like a blessing that you're blessing good action early in the day that makes it a lot easier for you to continue that positive momentum. At night, I think there's many ways you can do some kind of wind down ritual. A simple way for our program members who tend to have a tough time with snacking is like brush your teeth after dinner, have an evening tea, and start to have some kind of anchor to tell yourself, I am done eating for the day. My body is now going into a fasted period. Because what we have pretty much figured out from understanding more about circadian biology is eating too late at night is not great for the system. The body at night wants to be at a more resting, digesting system. We want to have the parasympathetic nervous system be dominant, and we don't want to be throwing a ton of food. That is an act of digestive stress in the stomach where the body has to shunt a lot of blood flow. It has to do a lot of work. And also when our core temperature is meant to drop a little bit at night to help stimulate deep sleep, when we eat a lot, it is metabolic activity. Heat is created in the process of metabolism of food. So it's not a great thing. So if we can kind of shift that dinner and maybe do the brush the teeth kind of thing, and of course do things like eliminate blue light. I know you guys last week had an expert. It was last week or very recently you had an expert talk all about the different wavelengths of light, and I know you're very optimized on that at this point. So I won't go into the depths other than saying that probably having some kind of ritual at night that is also taking into account the different kinds of light is going to be very helpful for your health long term. So step 5 in this process, and this is the final step, is to pave the path to your success with something like a meal preparation ritual 1 to 2 times per week. What I love about the idea of meal prep is that if we have, let's say, 3 meals a day, 7 days per week on average, that's 21 decision points. Through meal prep, we can basically wipe out 1/3 to 2/3 of those decision points. We can pave the path to our success. This will save time and help you make healthy choices more automatic. And what your meal prep looks like will be unique to you and the nutrition system that you're developing. It'll be dependent on what kind of go-to proteins that you do have. If you are having animal foods, it could look like, throwing some different proteins in the oven, for example, in a sous vide machine. You could be very simple. If you don't want to do a lot of prep or you're busy on time, it could be your meal prep could be as simple as going to Costco and buying a couple big tubs of spring mix to help you make those perfect plates. That could be a really easy thing. And then there's a lot of great tools like Instapots, crock pots, slow cookers, rice cookers that can save a lot of time in preparing some of these carbohydrate foods. And do you have to do this where you cook all of your food on one day and store it for the week? Absolutely not. But I think the concept of meal preparation is paving the path to your success. How can you do that? And maybe it's like you like oatmeal in the morning, you follow a plant-based diet. Could you somehow make overnight oats like the night before? And is it sitting in there and really readily available for you? Meal prep could also be looked at in the lens of, let's say you do smoothies or powered protein smoothies in the morning. Could you have all the ingredients just kind of like laid out there, easy to kind of like turnkey go around, and it's like in a particular area? All of these little things that remove friction are massive for our consistency over the long haul. Every bit of friction causes a spark, wears us down a little bit, and it only takes a really tough day or week or some kind of family stressors to throw us off track. So if we can really be a little conscious about ways to make things easier, it's going to be great. And even if you don't want to do any meal prep, you can even buy stuff in bulk from places that have cooked these kinds of foods and help you be more successful. So the summary of these 5 steps is: decide on your meal structure, decide on your healthy go-to foods, combine those go-to foods into easy meals, use AM and PM rituals as anchors, and pave the path with some meal prep. And like the stuff we talked about here is not earth-shattering. It's stuff that, you probably do many of these things, but I'll tell you this: when it's combined into, these things are combined into consistent action, you will have an engine that will help you run consistently over the long haul. And if you ever do slip up and something happens, you ate off plan, you're traveling and your schedule's a little bit wonky, you always have this structure that you can kind of come back to. And that's why this is so important, because we want to be consistent over the long haul, not just on a diet for a short period of time. So with all that said, those are the 5 steps. And I wanted to be short with this part of the presentation to also open it up to some deeper discussion with me and Robbie and your different questions on other things. If you'd like to get my take on micronutrients, using longer intermittent fasting, stuff for optimal digestive health, sports performance, bodybuilding focused nutrition, now we can kind of spend the rest of this time together this morning getting into direct Q&A topics. But I hope you found the framework valuable. I'll tell you this: it's like the stuff when it comes to nutrition, it's like the fundamentals in some kind of sport. They're not always the sexiest, but if you do work them, you will see the best results. So thank you for that. And Robbie, I'll turn it back over to you.
Dr. Anthony, that was absolutely awesome. I really think that was one of the most on point, nutritious, yet doable and sensible, low friction nutritional presentations I've ever seen. That was really really good. I think that's solid information, and you and I are super aligned. You're showing my daily diet there on the screen, so it's so on point. So I just want to give you kudos to the way you put that together, and knowing your track record. It's so interesting because what a lot of people won't see in this, which I'll give you some kind of wisdom and experience thought that you don't just see right away, is individuals that lived in the bodybuilding world. There is some very crucial body composition, right? Like your fat and your lean mass and these things. There's things that you learn, and we can take the presentation part off, so it's just you and I. So there's things that you learn when you live in the body composition world. Like, Dr. Anthony was a champion bodybuilder, and I used to do bodybuilding when I was in my 20s. And one of the things you learn is like how to truly get the leanest body and low body fat and all, which is really, really important to your health. Now, bodybuilders take that way too far and they do like crazy stuff, and it ends up becoming health detrimental, because any strength done to excess can become a weakness, right? So, but what you've done is you've taken the healthiest, the true life, longevity, vitality aspect, infused it with the body composition. I can see your experience. I can see all of your study culminating and coming together in your presentation. So, I just wanted to share, like, I could see that immediately. And that's one of the things that makes it so brilliant. So I want to encourage everyone who sees this presentation, both with us live or in the recording afterward, to try to implement what Dr. Anthony just presented, because I 100% agree with you. I mean, just so many great points. Nutrition is iterative. I think life is iterative. Exercise is iterative. There's a repeatable pattern, and the better you get on those habitual patterns and find the thing that works for you. And that's exactly what you gave everyone. So as we prepare now for Q&A, I invite our VIPs first, and of course our Full Body Fix members and audience members are also welcome to participate. Let us know your question. What specific questions do you have? Is there anything that you had doubts on in terms of what Anthony presented, or anything specifically you want to know for your own life, let us know. You can also write comments in the chat if you don't feel like asking in the live Q&A, and I'll ask them for you. So let's go ahead and go into that now. And also another point I wanted to connect with you on is fruit. You know, as I always say, is fruit is the healthiest sugar in the world. Fruit is the healthiest sugar in the world. And I love how you shared the mono consumption of having certain fruits and not combining with that. That was brilliant, genius stuff as well. And now let's go into Q&A. And first up, we have Diane. Hello, Diane. Good to see you.
Hello. Awesome presentation. Thank you so much for that. And, you know, listening to what Robbie's saying, I have a wee bit of experience with bodybuilding in my late 20s, early 30s. I know I'm an extremist. So now we fast forward and now it's health in your 60s, right? So everything you're saying, great. And the little comments you made about micronutrients, minerals to come. So those are really the challenges that I feel I'm facing now. So I can go in for a physical exam and they'll run a panel and they tell me everything looks fantastic. And then I'll go into a naturopath and run a micronutrient panel, and I'm deficient in certain things that I'm taking. I don't know that I have a specific question, but I'd be interested maybe in your thoughts with regard to that, or, you know, some input, because I'm seeing now that's what's getting me at this point in life is I'm not metabolizing foods as well as I did in the past. I feel like I'm healthy for the most part. You know, all those things that we talk about, I pay attention to, gut health, blah, blah, blah. You know, you have some hormonal changes that play into that, I understand. But so I'm trying to get a specific question out of that. I mean, this hit me hard fairly recently because, you know, I've been I eat pretty well. I've been taking supplements, and then I have a micronutrient panel done, and I'm pretty deficient in B12 and vitamin C. And I'm thinking, gosh, how can that be? You know, so maybe just some comments from your end on what you're seeing, and is that more age related, perhaps? And that's something I just need to learn and pay attention to.
Okay, great. And do you eat animal foods in your diet? What is your diet made of? Or is it you do?
Yep, animal.
Okay.
Yep, most, you know, chicken, some fish, beef, and we, you know, I'm, you know, pasture or grass fed. Do the wild caught, just like what you're saying, as far as the salmon and whatnot. You know, don't always have the perfect diet, but you know, pretty good. And I'm an intermittent faster, so I usually have my first meal around, you know, midday after I've done a workout in the morning, and then push second meal into the evening. Try to eat and be done by 7 in the evening.
Okay. Here's what I would suggest. And you are right. I mean, as we get older, stuff happens. And one thing is digestive capacity does often go down. Like stomach acid can change. We can absorb fewer nutrients in some aspects. I do find that you might want to play around with having, using a digestive enzyme or two, a full spectrum digestive enzyme when you're having like heavier meals could be something that you find might be helpful. I would definitely counsel you to try getting some of the most micronutrient rich animal foods into your diet, like liver, heart, like organ meats, these kinds of things, like the wursts, or there are all supplements as well that have these. I mean, if you want to look at some of those bioavailable micronutrients, they're found in some of these awful, you know, areas in organ meats and stuff like that. And another thing is like a really good liquid full spectrum micronutrient supplement can be good. Like an expensive one that I've used in the past is from Drucker Labs. They have something called Intramax that has a whole bunch of vitamins and minerals. And it's something you could take in the morning as well. Interesting on the vitamin C. Do you eat any fruits in your diet?
You know, I've added fruits back in. I went through that thing that you're talking about where fruits maybe not so good. And I've added them back into my diet. It's mostly berries that I usually go for.
Can you tolerate citrus as well? Are you able to tolerate citrus fruits?
I do. I'm a big lemon person.
That's good. Use it.
Just, lemon in water, that sort of thing. So that's pretty common for me.
Maybe before you break your fast, I'd consider doing a mono fruit meal with maybe some grapefruit or some citrus, because you're getting a very bioavailable form of vitamin C in those kinds of foods, along with like quercetin and a lot of other good nutrients that work around with that. And I think if you wait like 20 minutes after having that, and then you actually have your first meal of the day, that could be a good habit to start to get some of those in. You can alternate maybe berries and citrus like every other day. That could be pretty solid. And then, I know like liver doesn't like taste good to have, but also like stews and like collagen based stuff like bone broths and stuff like that can also give you a lot of minerals from those complexes. So I think those are probably some of the best things. And look into, I'm not an expert in this by any means, but like fulvic and humic acid supplements, FULVIC, HUMIC. They're really powerful. I mean, this is basically like decomposed plant material that we're used to get exposed to over time, like through evolution. And it drives minerals into our cells. It's a detoxifying for things like glyphosate, and it's good for mineralizing. So there's some companies that have those. And I think I saw Lucy nodding her head. Is like, Lucy, are you into fulvic and humic acid supplements, or is that just a random nod? You don't have to say anything, but okay. But anyways, So those are maybe some suggestions. And there are some companies that sell like desiccated organ, like capsules. You could try some heart or some liver like that. I personally don't take them, but some people do, and they say that they have great results with that.
And you spoke about a micronutrient rich
liquid.
Rather expensive, or a liquid that you
Intramax. The place is called Drucker Labs, DRUCKER Labs. It's like just like a super liquid supplement that has just a ton of phytonutrients, vitamins, minerals, has some of those fulvic humic acids. If you wanted one thing to like take as a cap to cover your micronutrient basis, that would be a product to consider.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But Patricia, being Brazilian, that's a common food in Brazil, like chicken hearts. So we go to what is it called? The Chahaskaria, which is like the meat buffet. And I definitely don't eat chicken hearts. That's not the common thing for me, but I see Patricia posting in the chat. But it's interesting because Patty is a very picky eater. She's improved her diet a lot, but she is a super picky eater. And so for her to eat something like that is just very interesting. And with that, next up, Jeff. Hello, Jeff.
Good morning. On the organ meat thing, before I go on to my actual question, when I was a kid, I used to eat chicken hearts and loved it. It's a little chewy.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like chewing rubber, but it's quite tasty if you fry it up with a little butter. Very good. Also, liver. If you saute liver and then saute onions to make them slightly caramelized. Caramelized onion and liver is wonderful. Makes it quite palatable. My actual question has to do with slow metabolism and reversing slow metabolism. I strongly suspect, but I have no data to support, that my metabolism has been damaged by repeated efforts at dieting. And I've heard of something called reverse dieting that I think is aimed at upping your calorie intake without ballooning up fat-wise. Right. But I'd really like to know more about that. I have a fairly lean build. I don't have a lot of lean muscle mass. When I was in my 30s, I had a water test, fat and body composition thing. And I think my lean body mass was 133, 134 pounds. Now via bioimpedance measurements, it's down around 123, 124. I'm 74. So some amount of sarcopenia is, I suppose, to be expected. But I'm really frustrated. Mm-hmm. And I've got way more fat on me than I want. It's around 24%. Mm-hmm. I carry it pretty well. I mean, you see me in profile, it's with clothes on. It's not too bad, but I want to get rid of this excess fat. I'd like to be down around 12% body fat.
Gotcha.
And I just cannot for love or money seem to get there. So
I'd love to give you my take on that. And it's going to be a combination of two things, I believe, are the answer. One is you're doing exercise. I would make sure you're doing like strength training 3-4 times a week. And the fastest way to increase your metabolism is to gain muscle mass. Now, not the easiest thing to do in your 70s, but definitely possible. I think strength training is going to be a huge variable there. Yeah.
Well, let me jump in because I did a lot of slow movement to a point of failure weightlifting for several years. I toned up really nicely. I did not bulk up. I think I've mentioned this to Robbie before. I am so frustrated. I can be really dedicated. I can work my ass off. I don't see results and it drives me crazy.
It'd be nice to get your hormone levels checked too. I don't know if you have had testosterone, free testosterone checked. Those could be considerations there. Have you?
I have, and my testosterone is low normal. I don't remember the exact numbers. I'm going to say 133. Is that the right range?
That seems pretty low. I mean, if
no, not 130. I'm sorry. So 330. 330.
Still low, but like within the normal range.
Right.
Say, yes.
But my estradiol is like 5 times the high normal range for a male.
Okay.
It's crazy.
There are some, if you do have a primary care doc, there are some medications that could be indicated if you want to go that way to cut down on some of that estrogen as well, because that can increase your sex hormone binding globulin. It could be a factor there. But that aside, I mean, I would definitely keep on exploring this hormonal profile aspect because that will help your progress. The reverse dieting is something we can talk about and like get detailed into. The first part of that reverse dieting is really getting clear about how much you're intaking. To do reverse dieting right, you really got to know how much you're eating and really tracking your macros in a pretty tight way so that every week you can bump up those calories by about 100 calories a week or so and slowly creep it up. And so first line, set your baseline of what your macros are and have a general idea of how many calories you're eating. Then every week, systematically add around 100 calories or so and just try to be tracking your weight and your body fat in whatever way that you do. The impedance is fine. And you want to have those excess calories coming in the form of carbohydrate. So this is like one of the things I'd say, set your baseline protein target that is good, whatever you eat, which I imagine for you would probably be a good target of maybe 150 grams per day or something around that, maybe 100 to 150, like set that baseline.
For protein?
Yeah, I'd say I'm just throwing snowballs for you, but like a snowball kind of figure, but I suppose that'd be a pretty good. Higher protein intakes can help preserve lean muscle mass for sure. They're very anti-catabolic too. And then you won't need to creep up the protein as you reverse diet. You want to creep up the carbohydrate. So one of the concepts is one of our hormones that drives our metabolism is leptin. Leptin is a very key hormone and it's sensitive to increases in carbohydrate. So as we can creep up those carbohydrates and still keep you at the same lean level, you have improved leptin signaling in your hypothalamus and it can help your metabolism. So the goal is to add maybe 25 grams of carbohydrates a week and keep on creeping that up as weight. There's one way to do it, but basically you got to track and you got to be systematic about increasing that. Those 25 grams could come spread out throughout your meals, or you could just add those to dinner. So maybe it's an extra half cup of some kind of carbohydrate, rice or something like that you add in every week. And then you track your body fat and you track your weight. And I think it'd be a good aim. And it maybe you're adding 100 calories a week. Maybe it's 100 calories every 2 weeks. But the goal would be for you not to be going up in weight, but to be consuming more food and just basically stoke the metabolic fire more. If you go throughout that process and experiment with that, I believe also going down the hormone rabbit hole and like starting to work at ways you can improve that, specifically the estrogen level seems like low hanging fruit. Try to work on bringing that down. Maybe you take a supplement like DIM or indole 3-carbinol. It's something that can help deliver metabolize estrogens more. And there could be an underlying medical stuff that's going on due to the estrogen. So maybe get connected with an endocrinologist, primary care doc to check that out. And then lift. I know it's been frustrating that you weren't seeing gains in the past, but like you still got to be getting after it. I believe if your goal is to increase muscle mass, I would suggest like doing the workouts and corrective exercise that Robbie and you do in this community. And then maybe like full body strength training 2 times per week would be huge. Lifting weights would be a good suggestion.
So would Robbie's 4 days a week curriculum?
Robbie can probably
qualify?
answer this a little bit more about how it'll fit into
Right.
the curriculum, what he'd suggest.
So Jeff, one thing that's available to you as a VIP is like, if you want other days, like if you want, you know, this is true for all VIPs. If you want aerobic conditioning, or you, in your case, you want strength gain. So a message Fabricio in your WhatsApp profile, and he's a world-class physiologist. He's one of the best in the world at like muscle gain and stuff. So if you message him, he can put it in your Fitness Doctor app and have like 2 set days for like strength training type of activity. Now you do want to be careful, like you don't want to overtrain like upper body on Tuesday and then this hardcore strength training workout on Wednesday. And you know, like what I've seen with strength training over many years is like if you lift more load, you're going to increase muscle mass typically, but there's more danger with lifting more load. So the best thing to do is challenge your neurological system, which is really what muscle fiber recruitment is dependent upon anyway, and challenge yourself to do the exercise more perfectly. And that's what the whole biomechanical optimization system is about. And as you progress into phase 2, you're in phase 1 right now, there is some exercise that have more load and more pressure on your body. When you're optimized and then you do that, you'll get better results. So you have phase 2, you have Fabricio, there's all these different things that you can do to add those other strength training. The other thing that I'm going to share with you is like, you are who you are in terms of like body makeup. So to try to gain like 10 pounds of muscle would be a huge muscle gain. If you weren't already strength training, I could see that potentially happening, but that's already huge. So what you want to do is optimize your neurological function and your muscle, and you want to be strong, but don't put too much weight on how much muscle mass you have, because the reality is at 74, the thinner people live longer, right?
Yeah.
Thinner people do live. So you want to be lean, and everything Dr. Anthony is sharing with you is awesome to do that. And testosterone and these things make a drastic difference. So I would definitely look into that further.
Yeah.
The other thing that can help you in terms of like, you know, 1 to 10, how important is fat loss to you? And then I'm going to ask 1 to 10, how important is the muscle gain to you? So what is 1 to 10 on fat loss?
Okay. So in terms of body type, I want to be lean, trim, and fit. That's not the same in my mind as muscle bound. I don't like the bulging look particularly. Yeah.
Okay.
What I don't like is the puffy look.
Sure.
I'm carrying more fat than I want to carry. With regard to my primary care physician, he's just not particularly either supportive or insightful. And what I really need to find, and it's an medical insurance issue, is a functional medicine doctor that I can be reimbursed for, because I did go to one. I found one online. I went to this person in Southern California, so it was all via Zoom, and she diagnosed the testosterone estradiol imbalance thing, and then she wanted to do a whole blood profile. She had like, God, I don't know, it was like 25 different tests, and my primary care physician looked at it and he said, well, in the first instance, if I got the results back for half of the tests that she's calling for, I wouldn't know what to do with them. And that was the first response he had. The second response is, do you realize that the cost, the unreimbursed cost of this number of tests is approximately $10,000? And that sort of killed it right there. I mean, I just, I was just beating my head against a wall. So I just am so frustrated.
So Dr. Anthony, do you have someone you'd refer him to in California, or maybe someone in the health community?
Where are you in California, Northern or Southern California? And I mean, I guess it ultimately depends on your insurance, because I totally agree. A lot of these functional medicine tests can be crazy out of pocket. So I don't know.
I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, Oakland, California, specifically right across the bay from San Francisco.
So, Jeff, so for testosterone, that's a very inexpensive blood test. So testosterone and estradiol, that's a pretty it's all the other more extravagant tests. So if you found a naturopath that believes in therapeutic hormone replacement, then you're going to be able to get tests inexpensively. You can do it through the insurance system. And then oftentimes for your naturopathic medical doctor, your insurance is not going to cover that, but you'd be able to see them for cash pay and then get your insurance to then pay for the blood work. So that's commonly how it works. So you'd cash pay for the visit, but you do insurance for the blood work. And especially when it's not like, really exotic blood work, it's more just like testosterone and estradiol, which is the numbers they need to really see for them to prescribe that.
Well, there was this one really cool test that this functional medicine doctor alerted me to, called a Dutch test. And it's a test where you measure your testosterone, estradiol levels 4 times a day. And you do it once a day, one time, and you get a sort of a circadian rhythm as to what your hormones are doing. And that apparently is more insightful than just a straight one-time test. But it's very confusing. And I'm a science guy. I'm really interested in all this stuff. But when you start getting conflicting advice from different sources, that's death. I don't know what to do with that. So,
well, testosterone and estradiol, Dr. Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not really a number that's going to like change drastically in a blood test from like 4 hours. This is more of a not long 6 months, but long, like it's not going to change hour to hour.
Yeah, unless you like drank 10 beers and didn't sleep the night before, like you can crack your test could be maybe a couple 100 points, but it probably wasn't the case before you got your last blood work.
Yeah. So my to complicate things, I was the victim of toxic stress as a kid, and so my cortisol regulatory system doesn't work really well. And that has an effect, I'm led to believe, on other hormones. So, well, look, I don't want to dominate the discussion here.
Sure, but cortisol has an inverse relationship with testosterone. So,
right.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of why, and I wish that there was a way, just as you can monitor glucose, you put one of those things on your arm and you put your phone up to it. Why they don't have something like that for cortisol, I don't know, but man, I'd love that. I'd love to be able to monitor it, because I can spin up really quickly, and then it just has to naturally metabolize out of my system. It's not actively downregulated. So, well, anyway, if you have any extra ideas, you can.
I'll message you privately. Yeah, and I do have, because like in your physical fitness scorecard, you also have a nutrition analysis system that can like score you, and that will get you lean. So I'll send you a message privately on that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Cool. You're welcome. And hello, Lucy. Welcome.
Myself. Hi. I unmuted myself. Yes. I actually, because of my autoimmune disease, which I didn't know that it was an autoimmune disease till like 5 years ago when they discovered that it was an autoimmune disease, I did a colon cleanse. And that's why I nodded my head at fulvic minerals. I got a colon cleanse from Well of Life. And they deal with a whole bunch of functional doctors to put that colon cleanse put together. So they did a lot of bulk minerals, and it changed my body a lot. I was in less pain, and I had fibromyalgia. So my cortisol was through the roof, and that was affecting me feeling the weather. I was a better weatherman than the weather people. I know if it was going to snow that night, and it was terrible. I was in lots of pain because of it. I reversed that last year. I actually did pay to see a fibromyalgia doctor. There's only 100 in the States. And I saw him from Canada. And then I got the supplement sent to me. and one of them was an adrenal cortex, which actually helped my adrenals to start working properly. And I sent the sample of cortisol 4 times a day of saliva. So that was really good going with him. So was expensive, but that's just
Nice.
that. So Well of Life was the fulvic acid.
Nice.
So it's from the book Chahaskaria, and has the highest mineral count in it. So
Nice.
you're getting a lot of minerals out of it. So that's why it's really healthy.
That's good.
Yeah. So it's Well of Life.
Well of Life. Nice.
Yes, Well of Life.
So Lucy, did you
know that?
Oh, sorry. Did you just have a share, or did you also have a question?
I more of a share, and I just because of my food, because of my craniofacial disease, I have a hard time chewing some days, and it's really hard to get the proper food in me.
Yeah.
Because I can't chew. I have a flagship green drink that has lots of berries and my minerals for my greens. And I don't know if that could help in the morning. I don't know how it's been helping, but ultimately I don't know what to do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the history of your craniofacial disease, but I mean, the more you can continue to chew, the better, to continue to repattern and strengthen those muscles. I think the smoothies are good. Yeah, I know you're trying. I imagine you're trying.
I've had 9 surgeries since 1995.
Oh man. Yeah.
So every couple of years, and now I've realized that I found out that Dr. Gundry in California, who was a cardiac surgeon, who now is dealing with supplements. He's taking care of autoimmune diseases, and he's reversing with high doses of vitamin D. So I started doing that, and the 2 cysts that were growing are gone.
Nice.
So it's amazing what a vitamin will do to you.
For sure. Yeah. That's really great. I would maybe one suggestion too on nutrition, you might be getting a slow cooker and starting to do some bone broths or like stuff in a slow cooker, just because the meats will be like a little softer and easier to chew. It might be easier to get some nutrition in that way.
Okay. And are there any vitamins as you get older that you start losing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't absorb B12 as much. I mentioned the gastric acid, kind of connection there. So the B12 can be something that you see get lower. It's important to check iron levels too. I think that's on regular blood work. It's good to check those for too high or for too low. And I think a lot of people have different genetic polymorphisms with like methylation pathways with B vitamins. So, I mean, that's why I think it's good to get plenty of those from many different sources. And I think, again, some of these dense animal foods, all roads lead back to liver, right? Just kidding. But kind of, there's lots of Diane's still shaking her head like, no, thank you.
I take the methylated vitamins just for that.
That's good. Very good.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thanks. And, magnesium and choline, I think, are 2 things that are really good. Choline found in eggs, really good for brain health. And everyone should be trying to optimize magnesium as much as we can.
Yeah, I heard that I had a huge magnesium shortage, but it's really hard to find in blood work. That is the problem. You use it so fast that you can't see it in blood work. So, and I got told that I probably short. So I started taking it, and I started feeling a little bit better.
Good.
So, and it helps my bones too. So
yeah, for sure. And I think with anything, if you can tolerate fruit, anything that gives you a diversity of different fiber types is great for the gut. Because like autoimmune is very related to digestive stuff and like gut microbiome. So stuff that you can do to like help the GI tract is good. And that's why someone asked a question about like what I think about raw versus cooked fruit. And I'm going to make the stance of like raw fruit is going to be best in my opinion, keeps those fibers intact. And there are enzymes in certain kinds of fruits too that are beneficial. Like papaya has papain, which is an enzyme that many people take as a supplement. Bananas have bromelain, which is an enzyme that breaks down proteins in the body. So that's good.
Bromelain was actually my godsend after I started getting arthritis. I actually took it in the joint pill, and it actually reversed my arthritis because bromelain actually, and I do eat lots of pineapple when I can.
Yeah. But pineapple cores have most of the bromelain, but that's great that it's been helpful for you.
I got a joint pill. It was expensive because I got it from the States. I refused to get anything from Canada. Everything in the stores seemed to be additives, and I didn't understand the names of the chemicals in there, so I didn't trust it. So I ordered from the States and dealt with other companies that actually didn't have all those other names that I didn't know. I could look them up and they looked like they were chemicalized. I wanted a natural vitamin, so I did that. And
Nice.
bromelain was the best agree.
Yeah, another thing we didn't mention in the nutrition talk, but I think is good, is everyone to kind of find some natural anti-inflammatories that they can get into their diet. And some of these are food-based. So things like ginger, things like a good curcumin source. If you don't eat fish, getting those omega-3s pulsed a couple times per week is good. You know, getting an omega-3 supplement, whether it's the cod liver oil you might have had as a kid, or it's a high quality fish oil, these could be beneficial. Like oftentimes I will make a juice of some sort with some ginger, turmeric, black pepper extracts, maybe some apples and pineapple core. Like you can get a lot of anti-inflammatory action through fruits and vegetables. Yeah.
I actually take a turmeric tea.
That's good.
And I
Yeah.
got it for like a niffy.
It's not that well absorbed without like certain things, but it's still good for the GI tract.
But it has reishi mushrooms and other things
Nice.
in there that are really relaxing and help me sleep.
There you
so
go.
I take that.
Keep on keeping on with that.
I had to do anything I could to decrease my inflammation in my body. It was through the roof at 40. So
yeah,
you shouldn't have that kind of inflammation at 40.
Right.
So yes.
Nice.
I aged.
Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you for your share, Lucy.
I want to comment real fast on, I mean, Deborah had a comment on the raw veggies. Like, so the veggies, you're absolutely right. Things like tomatoes are more nutritious when cooked. And actually the cooking does deactivate a lot of like the lectins. You mentioned Dr. Gundry. He kind of like burst onto the scene being like, vegetables are trying not to be eaten. They produce lectins and lectins are damaging for us. And so we should avoid them. I think there is some truth to certain aspects of that, right? Like if you ate certain beans raw or certain vegetables raw, like it could cause GI upset. And some of the nightshade vegetables and families are some that have the most potent lectins. I would say like, I'm a stance where I think like I would rather eat steamed broccoli than raw broccoli. Again, it's like very fibrous and like cellular, like it'll help it. You actually break it down if it is cooked a little bit. What veggie would I say would be best raw? I couldn't say, I don't know. I think lightly cooking veggies is often like a really good move. I mean, certainly a raw cucumber could be fine. I think cooking your tomatoes are good, but I am a fan of like fruits being raw, I would say.
And hello, Randa. Good afternoon, or maybe even evening now for you.
Yes, definitely evening. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. And thank you for this presentation. Really wonderful. I have a similar story to you. My mother had cancer and it progressed over the years, and she died at 45 when I was 15.
There you go.
So when I was about 19 or so, I really started, I had a bit of a cancer scare, and I didn't want to go the way she had gone, traditional doctors at the time, which were so brutal, breast cancer treatment at that time. Yeah. So I went on a giant quest to find a different kind of doctor. And I'm 77 now, so this is when I was, 19, 20. And I was in New York, there were not a lot of alternative type doctors. And I found Dr. Diadamo, who's the father of, you might know, the son. Yeah. So I found him in Brooklyn, and I went to see him, and it really helped me. So I've kind of, ever since then, been on various healthy diets, routines, and every now and then, every few years, I get just a real wave of fatigue of the whole thing of supplements. And I'm in that now where I've been working with a new nutritionist, because I now have acid reflux and SIBO and IBS, that have started sort of in my 40s and progressed. So she's loaded me with so many supplements, and I can't seem to do it. I'm really following a diet right now. I'm the FODMAP diet, which has helped. But it's, at a certain point, you just get confused. Like there's so many things you can't eat and so many supplements she says I should take. And, it's hard when you reach that point of I'm just tired of all of this, except the diet. I don't want to feel bad. But anyway, I just thought I don't know where my question is in there except I'd love to know your thoughts about acid reflux and SIBO and IBS,
sure.
and also how to sort of move through these periods of fatigue with supplements and taking things. So.
I mean, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I know it's incredibly frustrating to have GI stuff that starts to like snowball, and it is hard. It can be hard to unwind, especially when you get propped up on a big protocol. You don't know exactly what's working. It's diet, supplements, you know, I get it. Like I've treated people when I was practicing, like, and it's not always an easy path. Now with the gastro, like with GERD or any acid reflux, my understanding, and hopefully you've been told this information as well, is that it's actually a condition of low acid in the stomach, not high acid. Have you been told this?
Yeah.
Because the acidity of the stomach actually closes that lower esophageal sphincter. And when there's not enough acid in the stomach, that sphincter stays open and stuff can reflux up. And then you want to be avoiding foods that cause reflux, you know, which is probably on a low FODMAP diet, you will have eliminated most and many things that would possibly do that. What I have seen work for some people is taking like some betaine HCl capsules or stuff to increase stomach acid. Maybe even using like apple cider vinegar and lemon and these kinds of things in the morning could be helpful for that, at least to create more tone in a more acidic environment in the stomach, to help close that so you don't have as much GERD. The SIBO is tough, right? Because then if you start giving fiber into the system, you know, it can be challenging if you feel like you have gas and bloating every time you eat certain kinds of foods. I would look into if there are certain probiotic strains that could be beneficial for SIBO. You could also try to go on a prolonged juice cleanse or juice fast. I don't know if you've tried that, but some people have had good results with multi-week juicing, because you are pulling all the fiber out of the system. And if you do have an overgrowth of bacteria, even good bacteria, particularly in the small intestine, like it can allow those populations to like thin out. So you're not like constantly like feeding them. Some people have had good results. I don't think it works for everyone, but man, if you're at the wit's end, you know, maybe try a 2-week juice cleanse. Like some good things can happen in those scenarios. I'm not saying that's a long-term plan, but it could start to move things in the right direction. And then from there, you could probably start to introduce foods when you wake your GI tract back up with certain fruits and vegetables that you know you do want to include, and then to rebuild from there. Just a suggestion. I'm not sure if it will work for you per se, but it could.
I wouldn't know what to put in it. There's so many limits.
Look up a guy named John Rose. John Rose. He's like a father, like the living father of juicing. He's been doing it for like 40 years, and he follows a raw vegan diet. So I'm not saying you follow his diet, but he's a man who's led more people through juice cleanses than anyone I think around. And if you type in John Rose juice cleanse PDF into Google, his PDF will come up about how to do it. And there's also some videos where he explains how to do a juice feast, as he calls it, or a solid food vacation. And if your GI tract is, you know, the state it's in, it could be good to give it like a reset away from all fibers while still giving you some micronutrients in the form of juice, and then see where it takes you. I think it's a fair experiment at this point for you.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think there were a few questions in chat that I might not.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that
I'm scrolling back up. Chuck, is Chuck still here? Chuck Usher, because we were talking about 1 meal a day a little bit. No, I don't know if he is.
No longer here.
Okay, bye, Chuck. Sorry.
And then while you're looking at the chat to see what questions haven't been answered yet, Anthony, I want to pull Diane back up on the screen with us here.
Okay.
Oops, sorry, Patricia. I clicked at the same time. I'll let you do it. Hello again.
Hi. Mostly a comment for Randa. A lot of the stuff you were talking about. It's mostly gut that I battled with. And when you talk about cleanse, and I've gone through I do HCl. I do a digestive enzyme. I've gotten progressively better, but I am like right now I'm involved in it's a cleanse, but it's, or I should call it maybe more of a detox. And I don't know that I should advertise, but the lab is Way Labs, and it's herbs. So it's WEI Labs, and they're located in Minnesota. My naturopath recommended it. I've been through one that was straight up gut, and the one that I'm doing now is it's a combination. It's gut, liver, kidney, so it's organs, because sometimes you get like you're moving things, but then they get stuck in your system. You're not, it's not coming out of your system. So I'll put that out there. I'm finding great success in that. I did the gut, the gut detox, and it's herbs. You can investigate it yourself, and if you're comfortable with it. I guess the thing about it is I didn't have to. I spoke with someone. They knew exactly what I had, and then they recommended based on that. And it's supplementation, but it's for X amount of time. Pretty easy to do. I understand you with like when you start having to do your own combinations of so many supplements, it just gets overwhelming, and you kind of fall off on that. So I just wanted to give that to you as a recommendation.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you very much.
And then Anthony, did we have any questions that we needed to go into from the chat?
I think, Deborah had one more confused about one thing you said, veggies that are higher in lectin, should they be cooked then, or should they be avoided? Well, like not all lectins are created equal, but many lectins are deactivated by heat and pressure. So like lectins in beans are pretty much knocked out by pressure cooking. So I think if you're going to eat beans, for example, it could be good to like traditionally prepare them. If you don't have a pressure cooker, you probably should soak them and like throw out the water and then cook them. If you do have a pressure cooker, it kind of like takes care of cooking all of those. And listen, not all lectins are bad. I think Gundry's brought like a lot of information up. Certain lectins actually help our immune system, and they can actually be good for fighting certain kinds of cancers. Everything that we consume is like ultimately has, not everything, but many things are hormetic stressors. Like they stress our body by introducing something. Like you've all heard that resveratrol is so good for us. It's like this anti-aging thing in wine and in berries. Well, it has lectin-like properties. It might actually be a lectin in itself. And it actually is a stressor for the body that leads to a certain kind of response. So I think avoiding foods that certainly cause you GI upset. I do believe in cooking foods that are pretty intense on the lectin scale. And I think we all have individual tolerance to that, but a pressure cooker I think is good and takes care of a lot of the game there.
And Anthony, how does your program work for nutrition? And,
yeah, well,
what should audience members know about that?
Basically, very similar to what we laid out here, like except we fill in all of the gaps and we hand you like the 100-page meal plan that has all of the recipes, helps you go even deeper into establishing this. Then we have coaches that help facilitate this. So we have a community very similar to this community of fit moms and fit dads. They're separate communities. When you join our programs, if you are interested in, you like what I've said and you want to kind of go deeper into understanding this stuff and what we do, then there are links to Fit Mother and Fit Father. You get our nutrition plan. You get some of our thoughts on metabolic workouts, particularly for over 40. So these are things you could probably do. You definitely could do in conjunction with stuff you're doing here. We go into supplementation, and then we have a community of trainers along with myself to help facilitate this. The programs are really good if you want to change your body composition. Most people come to us because they want to decrease their fat, increase their lean mass, or just like change the way they look. I think that's what our programs are like very good at, and they're geared exclusively over 40. So everyone in the community is 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And that's, I think, the rundown: nutrition, exercise, mindset guidance, pretty much what we've covered today. I think I gave you a good sample of at least my thought process and how we like to go about things.
Awesome. Well, thank you, brother. It was awesome presentation. Loved it. Really, really good. And thanks for the connection here. And you guys have the posts here. It's in the chat. And if you're watching this presentation after the fact, if you're watching the replay, it'll also be in the email that's included. So much love for all of you. Make it an absolutely wonderful weekend. And VIPs, I'll see you in your training. Make it a great weekend, and let's start applying these things that we talked about in nutrition today, and we'll see you soon.